Hello, and welcome to this episode of Office of the Patriot, where we try to make sense out of the nonsense of the progressive left and rhino right. I'm your host, Myron Ybarra.
And I'm your co-host, Angry Mike.
All right, before I go into my monologue, I just have to ask, how many of you are sick and tired of the liberal media and Democrat politicians insinuating that Donald Trump and roughly half of all Americans are either racists, fascists, or Nazis, or all of the above? Go ahead and take some time to answer this question in the comment section below. I got to tell you, I'm absolutely sick of it. And what's really upsetting, at least to me anyway, is these leftist idiots don't understand how the political spectrum works when they talk about Nazis and fascism, or what a racist really is. So in this episode of Office of the Patriot, we're going to break down the definition of each of these accusations that I'm using as a badge of honor now, and maybe help some of these Democrat morons understand that Donald Trump and conservatives are not the ones that fit the definition of these accusations. They are. So the first thing we're going to talk about is racism. And as many of you know, I like to define whatever topic I'm talking about. So there's no ambiguity. You know exactly what I'm talking about because we're both working off of the exact same information. So, according to Webster's dictionary, racism is a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So, by that definition, you'd have to assume that Donald Trump and, well, pretty much every conservative in the United States of America believes that the race they identify with is the one that they believe is superior to all of the other races. And if that's the case, then you cannot have a cohesive racist political party because all of us are of a different race. So, now that we have the definition out of the way, let's talk about the accusation that Donald Trump and thus conservatives are racist. In this first video, you're going to see a number of media idiots accusing Trump and, by default, all of you and I, because you and I are voting for him or have voted for him, of being racist.
And they either want to win this election or they are using rhetoric of taking it by force. Mm-hmm. That is what they mean, and that's what they're doing when they are inciting violence and hatred against Latinos, against Black Americans, against Americans who don't have children, you have J.D. Vance literally talking about watering down people's right to vote, depending on if they can viably carry a child or not. We have to understand how unhinged this campaign has gotten, and the only reason that the rhetoric has gotten this far is precisely because they are trying to prime the kind of froth that led up to the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
Mm-hmm. Donald Trump has tweeted more than 43,000 times. He's insulted thousands of people, many different types of people. But when he tweets about infestation, it's about Black and brown people. September 2014, at the height of an urgent health emergency. Why are we sending thousands of ill-trained soldiers into Ebola-infested areas of Africa? Bring the plague to the U.S.? Obama is so stupid. Infested, he says. There's a revolution going on in California. So many sanctuary areas want out of this ridiculous crime-infested and breeding concept. Infested, he says.
If you're watching this video and you're one of the lemmings who believes that Donald Trump is a racist, then it's likely that any facts that we present to you are not going to change your mind, well, at least in the immediate future. However, I will present reasons why Donald Trump and most conservative Americans are not racist, or at least biased against any immutable characteristics. First, in the case of Donald Trump, before he announced his candidacy for president back in 2015, he was beloved by many Black and Hispanic Americans, especially in New York City. In fact, back in 2014, while Donald Trump was a Republican, he actually donated to Comrade Kamala's campaign while she was Attorney General in California. What the fuck was he thinking? Crazy, right? Donald Trump has been seen in numerous pictures with prominent Black and Hispanic American figures in the media, in politics, in business, and in the arts. Before he met his current wife and shortly after he divorced from Marla Maples, Trump met and dated Kara Young, who is a biracial Black American. I think Joe Brown covers this part pretty nicely in this next clip.
How you feel about the people that feel like Trump is racist?
So, he's dated Black women before, like the woman he always showed up with on the red carpet thing. She was a fine model, right before his current wife. See, I can remember one time I went to a conference in New York, and some people I knew were there, and they said, hey, let's go check out some of the clubs. I said, okay. I hadn't been to a New York club, and damn. So we go. So there's this tall white guy coming in, and all the brothers hanging around with him. But he doesn't have a bodyguard. He just walks in on his own, and he sits down and, he's glad-handing and in the animated conversation with everybody. So who the hell is that? Oh, he's a billionaire we got around here. Dude's name is Trump. Trump Towers. Oh, yeah, that's the dude that owns it. Oh, he hanging with the homeboys.
Again, if you go back to my earlier definition of racism, you can see that anybody who associates or shares a bed with someone who is not of the same race they are just can't be racist. This whole racist shit show recently culminated to a head with the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden, where comedian Tony Hinchcliffe made some off-color jokes about Puerto Ricans and more specifically Puerto Rico. Take a look.
It's absolutely wild to see. And in Texas, stuff is really, really crazy. We're right there by a wide open border. Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
And of course, the liberal media jumped all over it and accused Trump of being a racist because he didn't condemn what was being said. Ladies and gentlemen, the guy is a fucking comedian. Okay, maybe the jokes weren't appropriate and maybe they were off color and they might not have been funny to some people who were in the audience, but to hold Trump accountable for everything that is said and done by everyone who's supporting him is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Again, it's a damn joke. And I'm speaking to the everyday average Democrat who got their panties in a bunch because MSNBC or CNN told them that Donald Trump is a racist because he had this comedian come up and say a few words that offended some people. It reminds me of every single time a leftist media person interviewed Trump and then asked him to condemn David Duke because of his racist positions. And then Trump would do it. And then the next damn day, they would infer that he hasn't done it. And they would say, do it again and again and again ad nauseum.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups?
Sure. You've got David Duke just joined. A bigot, a racist, a problem.
Would you repudiate David Duke?
Sure.
David Duke and robocalls are out again, the white supremacist movement supporting you. Do you have any words for that?
Well, I disavow.
David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow, okay?
When we looked at it and looked at the question, I disavowed David Duke. So I've disavowed David Duke all weekend long on Facebook, on Twitter, and obviously it's never enough.
Trump's refusal to condemn, distance himself from white supremacists.
The Anti-Defamation League is already out there asking the president to clarify why he didn't condemn white supremacists.
So are you prepared right now to make a clear and unequivocal statement renouncing the support of all white supremacists?
Of course I am. Of course I am.
When Chris joined, we had a news conference, and they asked me the exact same question. I said, I disavow. I disavowed then. I disavowed today on ABC with George Stephanopoulos. I disavowed again.
David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed on numerous occasions over the years.
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke. Ultimately, he got to the Ku Klux Klan, which obviously I'm going to disavow.
I've rejected David Duke. I've rejected the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan.
David Duke is saying to his supporters and followers, vote for Donald Trump. White supremacists are saying, vote. Do you want those votes?
No, I don't want them, and I don't want him to say it.
And you don't want the supporters?
No, I don't want anything.
What do you think of white supremacists, by the way?
I don't like any group of hate.
David Duke announced his Senate candidacy, claiming your agenda.
Are you ready before you ask the question?
Newt Gingrich said every Republican should repudiate this guy no matter what it takes.
And I do. Rebuked. Is that okay? Rebuked.
Rebuked.
Done.
Just to clear it up this morning, can you, naming it, make a declarative statement that you denounce, that the president denounces it?
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists.
Do you want white supremacists to vote for you?
No, I don't at all. Not at all.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no penance good enough for Trump to endure that will satisfy these hypocrites. And that's the reason why, if I was Trump, or at least on Trump's team, I would just tell them to go fuck themselves. And maybe go talk to the person who actually said or did the things that they believe are racist. Mike, what are your thoughts on being labeled a racist by the leftist media and uneducated Democrat lemmings?
Oh, dude. Okay. I can honestly say that every fucking time the lefties start screaming about whatever the fuck they're pretending to be offended about, it just reminds us all of how childish and emotionally challenged these retards truly are. I'm done with their bullshit and antics. I have been for a while, but it's getting really bad right now. And I would say, they're attempting to gaslight everyone else who isn't in line with their scripted narrative. But I would bet most of them truly, do not believe it's working at all. It's only pushing people away from their party and cementing the hardcore lefties in their party in place. And I think, they truly do believe everyone else is stupid and evil, which is you and I. It's like, it's really frustrating. And unfortunately, there's no way we can debate them, I don't think, because they, in my opinion, again, they're incapable of thinking rationally. I've seen no evidence that they can, think rationally when there's all this noise going on. And I think, of all my friends, you've seen, how much I've changed over the past 5 to 6 years. I've been leaning right for some time, but I've changed and I've become, like you said, the moniker you gave me is Angry Mike. My bucket of fucks is empty.
You wear it well, man. You wear it well.
And back in 2020, it got even worse. So at this point, I really don't give a shit about trying to engage with any of these people because I haven't seen any evidence that they can think rationally. It's hopeless. And I'll give a recent example. It'll be kind of long because I have to go into some background. But so I have an elderly neighbor. He's 82. So I try to give him a pass on a lot of stuff because it's hard enough for most people to keep up with all the carpet bombing of information we get through the mass media, especially, through, Fox and CNN and MSNBC and all the big ones. So he believes Fox and Newsmax are both right-wing propaganda outlets. And I told him, I watch them all because, especially when there's major events that are happening, I can weigh the information and better gauge, what's factual and what's, spin or bullshit or a combination of all. And I said, do you trust politicians? And he said, yes, of course, just like that. And I was kind of taken back. I was like, okay, well, so you trust all politicians? He said, well, yes, if they're Democrats. So I chuckled. I thought that was pretty funny and pretty typical. I asked him, do you trust narcissists and psychopaths? I said, it doesn't really take much research to find out that the vast majority of people who crave power, whether it's through, private business or government, they're almost always, egotists. They're narcissists. They're, probably psychopaths, a lot of them. And the spectrum goes from, control freaks, egomaniacs, self-centered assholes, all the way up to individuals with full-blown, antisocial behavior and psychopaths. We see that in a lot of our politicians, including, the beloved Barack Obama. And most of them don't have empathy. They only care about themselves. So he was pretty taken back. I could say he was dumbfounded. He kind of had this look in his face like he was overwhelmed. He really didn't know what to say. And then fast forward to, about 3 weeks ago, I had a yard sign put out by a local businessman who I learned a little bit about, and he's running as a Republican. He's got a good, business track record. So I trust him a lot on a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of his speeches. So I wanted his yard sign out there. And I could see that his opponent, as best as I can tell, is kind of, center left. If anything, he's a run of the mill politician. So my neighbor, was outside and I was outside, and he came over and he saw the sign. He says, I know the guy who you put the sign out for. And, I know him personally. I guess he knows him through, personal circles. And he says, he's a right winger. Like he said it just like that. And I kind of smiled at him and I played along because I remember having conversations with him in the past, and he probably forgot that, I lean to the right. So I kind of played along, and he should know that I'm no fan of the Democrats, but I said, yes, I know. So what exactly does that mean? And he didn't know how to respond to that. And, I could tell he didn't engage with a lot of people outside his echo chamber. So he said, well, he's one of those MAGA Trumpers. And I was like, okay, so, what does that mean? And he says, Trump's, kind of racist, and I just don't think he's a good person. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Okay. How in the fuck can we have a reasonable debate with these idiots? At this point, we can't. I can't debate him. That's for sure.
Agreed. Yeah, the Democrat media machine created a devil in Trump, and his supporters are all the demons in their glassed over eyes. In this next issue, we're going to jump into the accusation that Donald Trump and conservative Americans are fascists and Nazis. So again, let's go back to defining both of these two terms. And according to Webster's dictionary, fascism is a populist political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual. And that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader and is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. That's a mouthful. So we need to break this down. A populist political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation. Well, the conservative movement / Republican Party does that. So this kind of fits that part of the national narrative, at least that part of the definition anyway. But here's where the definition goes the way of the Democrat Party, and often race above the individual. Well, if you paid attention to the first part of this presentation, you would see that isn't the case for virtually all conservatives. As a matter of fact, conservatives and Donald Trump value individual liberty above their Democrat brethren who support socialist and communist ideology. And I'll get into that in a bit more in a few minutes. And finally, a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. Well, damn, that's exactly what the current Biden-Harris administration is doing right now. And the process would likely be taken up a few notches if Comrade Kamala takes office. Next, we have the term Nazi. Nazi is defined as a member of a German fascist party controlling Germany from 1933 to 1945 under Adolf Hitler. And this is where Miriam kind of gets it wrong. The Nazi Party was actually derived from the German Labor Party, and the Labor Party has its roots in socialism. More to the point, if you were to move to the extremes of each one of the current parties that are in our two-party system, Democrats and Republicans, you would have anarchy on the right and communism, fascism on the left. On the right, if you took the idea of individual liberty and freedom to the extreme, you could do whatever the hell you wanted to do whenever the hell you wanted. And that would basically be anarchy, individual liberty without the constraint of law. On the opposite end, Democrats would actually be the fascist. They would be fascist communists because at the far left extreme, you would have the political, military, and business class controlling all of production and distribution of a society with tight controls on individual liberty. That means these titles that we've been given by the liberal media and parroted by the uneducated Democrats that we come across in our daily lives are not only wrong, but truthfully, they actually own them. The Democrats are softened versions of fascists and Nazis. Mike?
Yep. These gaslighting shitbags will only stop when we call them out and shame them publicly, and we have to do it as often as possible. Whenever it happens, more and more of us need to speak out, so please do so. People need to stop being pussies and being unafraid of calling their friends and family members out for being the assholes that they truly are when they're assholes. Don't do it just because you want to, beat up on people. But
I mean, they may deserve it. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't give a fuck anymore. And I usually go on the offensive once I smell them about to pull out the fascist Nazi comment or some other, bullshit that the left always does. And I call them communists all the time. In fact, I don't really call myself a libertarian very often, even though I'm both of us are registered libertarians. Or I think you were at one point.
I was at one point. Now I am a Republican. I am a conservative.
Yeah. I mean, we both lean towards the libertarian points of view on a lot of stuff, but so I'm registered in that party. But I tend to call myself an anti-communist now because I think it makes more of an impact to people. And I've been called, haven't been called, any of those terms to my face yet. Nazi or a fascist, but I wouldn't really give a shit if I was because. I would just call them out, and if they're being emo-tards, I would just throw it back in their face, call them communists. And I find it really bizarre that really just within the span of only about I don't know, just like about 10 years or so, at least from my point of view, the Democrat Party that used to be widely considered to be anti-war and pro-working class, so now they're pro illegal immigrant and pro-war. They're the war hawks, and they support interventionist foreign policy and all these never-ending wars, and it's getting us into, massive debt. It's got to stop. So they've always favored centralization of authority within government, just like you were talking about, and it's only when they're in power and in recent years, they want to constrain the First Amendment to whatever they deem appropriate. Just recently, it's like you see all these lefties, calling out having to constrain the First Amendment. And thank God we have Elon Musk. He's fighting back. They don't value freedom. And if you don't agree with them, then they want to destroy you. And just like the Labour Party you were talking about, the Labour Party in the UK and other westernized parliamentary governments over in Australia, same thing. The U.S. Democrat Party, just like them, has become fascist.
Exactly, but it doesn't really matter to most conservatives what libtards say about us. And, well, it sure doesn't, or sure the hell doesn't appear to matter to Donald Trump what the swamp creature Democrats and rhinos are saying in an effort to prevent him from winning this next election. I don't know if you remember when Donald Trump's mugshot was blasted all over the internet and every leftist pundit was calling him a convict. That guy flipped the script and started selling t-shirts with his mugshot on it. Hell, there's even a t-shirt that's available now that reads The Convict and the Hillbilly 2024. I need to get one of those. Each of these labels are now being worn with pride by Donald Trump and conservative Americans. Take a look.
Hey, we heard that Nazis were supposed to be here. That's what Hillary Clinton said, so we out here to see. Have you seen the Nazi today?
We are the Nazi party. Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm white, though. I'm the
Nazi right here, yes.
Yeah.
Dominican Nazi.
Dominican Nazi. Latina Nazi. We got...
Oh, I'm the black Nazi.
Black Nazi.
The biggest blackest Nazi you ever seen in your life.
I'm the Jewish Nazi. The Jewish Nazi. Hey, listen, I'm the cool Nazi.
I'm a white Nazi.
I'm Mr. Cool himself. We out here, baby.
He's the white
My white Nazi.
Hey, he's the white Nazi.
White Nazi.
He's the all united here to make Donald J. Trump the 47th president of the United States.
Stop listening to the media, bro.
Truth be told, the real reason that the swamp doesn't want Donald Trump to take office is the same reason that we want him in office. Trump's job as the 47th president of the United States will be to clean house. The swamp knows it's filthy, and they know that we know that they're filthy. Donald Trump is nothing more than a means to an end to get rid of the filth that is embedded in Washington, D.C. Now, most of us have no illusions that Donald Trump will completely clean up D.C. as much as it needs to be. There are constraints via the law and the Constitution that are going to prevent him from doing some of the things that, honestly, I believe, need to be done. It's that whole checks and balances thing of the Constitution. And these vile, disgusting people are not going to go down without a fight. But it's a fight that Donald Trump raised his hand and pledged to do on our behalf. So, if you believe that our political class and even big business has abused their positions within or at the behest of the Democrat ruling class, then honestly, your vote should go to Donald Trump, because that's the only way things are going to get cleaned up. And to use a Democrat campaign slogan, changed.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
All right, this concludes today's episode of Office of the Patriot.
So if you enjoyed this presentation, and we know you did, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share the channel on the social media. It's really appreciated.
Yes, it absolutely is. And also, please take the time to comment. Viewer engagement via comments is the major metric for channel accessibility on most social media platforms like YouTube and Rumble and fuck Facebook. The more people that like, subscribe, and comment, the more this channel, Angry Mike and I, will come up when social and political content like this is searched for. And as always, have a blessed day. Stay safe out there.
Go vote.
Go vote. Trump.